Hello there, folks out in podcast land, and welcome back to Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. We are just a couple episodes away from the end of season 2. I am still your host, Ike, and before I make any more sounds or bold claims, I'd like to just take a moment and say thanks for being here and giving this pod a listen. It means a lot to me that you chose to use your precious time and give me and my guest your ears. If afterwards you still have the bandwidth and you enjoyed the episode, please share it with someone who you think would enjoy it. Or just subscribe yourself if you already haven't. That'd be rad. So, just got back from the first time I went out, and I'm going to very much, you can't see this, but using quotes, first time I went out running in a while. I am attempting to go couch, metaphorically, to 5K. And a couple months, it's probably going to be a little longer. As today I was supposed to run for 20 minutes, doing, and run again very much in quotes, because it's supposed to be, according to the program I was taking a gander at, I was supposed to go a minute and a half walking to a minute of running. And in my foolish, naive noggin, I was like, got this, easy. Really? This is where we're starting? Holy shit. So, this program was made for morons that were couch potatoes, of which I included myself, and didn't realize I was below the couch. I literally was able to run for 4 minutes, taking minute and a half breaks in between, till I almost passed out, died, or vomited. I don't know which was going to happen, but I decided that instead of one of those terrible outcomes, I would just, take a walk and come back to it the next day or the day after, whenever I'm supposed to on my program. And the best part is, even before I was doing that, I was getting lapped by grandmas, which just, it makes me happy that I live in Koreatown, so a couple old Korean ladies were just like just like shuffling on by me. It was just lovely. There was no look of, like, dismay or anything like that. They just, and just kept going. Just gave me a little bit of a toothy grin. And I had a lovely morning as I chuckled at myself. It was great. And even though I didn't do the full 8 minutes of running that were on the venue, I'm still really happy. I feel like crap, but I also feel good. I don't know if anybody has had that or, come back from a run. I've been told that's a consistent thing. The runner's high, as it metaphorically wasn't. If you've had an experience like this, feel free to sound off at me at twitter.com/likeikes, or email me if you'd prefer a little bit more discretion at passionandpeevespodcast@gmail.com. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I'd recommend the same. It feels terrible and awesome all at the same time. Something that just is awesome is I've, upon my brother's cajoling, gotten into watching Barry on now what is just Max as opposed to HBO Max, because HBO needed to be more like an LA club, I guess, and just have a Madonna-esque name of some bullshit. I don't fucking know. Either which way, Barry is amazing. I am nearly through season 1, even though I just started today. It's very watchable, 30-minute episodes. Moves by really quickly. Great pacing. It'll make you uncomfortable, make you laugh. It'll make you a little teary-eyed. Make you think. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and so far would recommend. I'll keep you posted on that, as I should be finished by next week. Something that's probably going to take me to the end of this week is a cleaning, which I was in the middle of a video game the other day and literally stopped playing because I couldn't help myself. I don't have anybody visiting. I don't, it's not that bad, he said, looking at the hypocrisy and hilarity of that sentence, or sentiment at the very least. But I just really wanted to clean. I was kind of over it, and it was kind of fun to just start cleaning. And after this video, after this podcast gets uploaded, probably gonna go right back to that. I am just enjoying getting my room in order. Does this make me an adult? As I said earlier, there's 1 or maybe 2 episodes left in the season. I guess I said a couple. We're gonna see how that plays out. But don't worry, like I've said earlier, we will immediately start into season 3, with mostly new questions, and, as always, new guests. Speaking of guests, my guest today is Justin BABB. He's a guest and great guy I met while playing Magic at my local haunt Turn Zero. And we got paired at the beginning of a tournament, and he played a card that made tokens, and his tokens were hand-drawn. I was like, well, those are really cool. How'd you get those? And he goes, oh, I made them. I was like, oh, shit. And I found out through casual conversation that he's a storyboard artist, had a great time, so I invited him on, and what follows next is one of my favorite episodes I've ever recorded. I hope you enjoy it as much as we did recording it. So, without further ado, past self, take it away! Well, thanks, future me. Now, with no further ado, today we have a wielder of the most hilarious pen, contemporary of wonder and journey, and once was a janitor at a chocolate factory. It's Justin BABB!
All right. I never get intros like this at my normal jobs. This is great.
If you had an intro like that at your normal job, what would you want the soundtrack to be as you walked out or walked into work? Like if they introduced you at the, like after you scanned your security badge.
I think I know what I like. There's what I would want, and then there was what would be fitting, and the fitting thing would probably involve a slide whistle. So
not a song, just a sound effect.
Yeah, like, yeah, just like a whoopee cushion and a slide whistle. That's it.
All right, what would you want it to be though?
Man, I think it would probably Rocky on a kazoo or something. Like it's something that I want to sound really amazing, but probably just sounds goofy.
I feel like you've earned Rocky on a kazoo. That's not a high bar. You don't have to slay any dragons to get Rocky on a kazoo. That's all you have to do is be able to say, and they just let you have it, I think. While we're talking about songs, though, what was your first concert and what was your best concert?
Ooh, my first concert. It's probably something I went to with my parents. I think it was like, oh gosh, was it Enya? It was someone with a piano. So that's probably not my best. She was great, but just not my vibe. Best concert, man. It's probably a tie. Let's see. I feel like every time I've seen System of a Down, like they just get the crowd going in a way.
Yeah,
that
I've been told that they are like. I mean, that's how they got their in connection with was it like Steve Rubin or whatever like that? He saw them at a concert and he's like, they're not quite where they need to be, but they've got it, and I can help them, get the rest.
Yeah, and I think along the same lines, like people that really get the crowd going, and probably one of my favorite concerts I've ever been to is Go Bordello.
Wow, deep cut. Go Bordello.
Yeah. Absolutely amazing band, kind of like punk rock Ukrainian, kind of like I don't want to say gypsy music, but kind of that. And it's if you haven't heard it, Start Wearing Purple is amazing, and then just go from there.
I can't tell if that's the name of a song or if you're recommending I change my wardrobe.
Start Wearing Purple is the name of the song, and it is it was probably,
and to really get it, you have to be wearing purple. What's your favorite movie line that you like to quote?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I went through a phase where I was quoting The Room a lot, which was probably like I feel like.
Did you have a friend named Mark, and you were just like, "Oh, God, I've got a place for this every day."
And probably the longest one that I've quoted from is Cannibal the Musical. So for listeners who have not seen it, it's Matt and Trey Parker's college film, and it's live action.
Oh my God.
There are a lot of it's very much like proto South Park. Yeah, there's a lot of really weird songs in there and a lot of weird lines.
Really? There's a lot of weird songs in Cannibal the Musical.
Yes.
A college film.
Yes, a lot, like including Let's Build a Snowman.
So that's where Frozen got the idea. Nailed it.
Yeah, Frozen's a little more G-rated, but yeah.
Who's someone you've never met, alive or dead, that you'd like to have lunch with?
Oh, gosh. Probably... I have two answers. One of them is cartoon-related and art-related, and the other one is not.
I'll allow it.
The cartoon one would be Chuck Jones.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and when I was in high school, or maybe a little earlier, I read his biography. And if you haven't read it, it's absolutely nuts. Like, because the people that worked on those cartoons were exactly like the cartoons, basically. Yeah. Like, there was someone that had a concession stand out of their office. And they would... And the menu was, they would flip it over so no one could see it when the boss came around. So the other side was an autographed picture of Jesus, which was...
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so big brain.
They had insulation in their desks, so they would have hot dogs, like ice cream, all sorts of stuff. And you would like... They would bring a basket. They would put a basket on a rope and put it outside the window, and it would have money and like a note on what they wanted, and they fill the order and they like tug it and have it go up.
The beginnings of DoorDash.
Well, what's even better is like people would like get like a walking cane and try to like pull in the basket and steal stuff. But the guy who was selling it was smart enough to know this, so sometimes he would just put live firecrackers in there and then send it up.
This reminds me of, have you heard about like the early times between like, I think it's Nike and Adidas? Because both their campuses are like in Portland. And so
I have not heard about this.
So both their campuses are in Portland, and they used, I don't remember if their campuses were big or if the people they needed to get intel to were like across town, but they used bike couriers to take intel from like one part to another. And then the other company would pay the bike couriers more to deviate, let them look at their, like the new shoe, the gear, whatever, take pictures of it. So then they started sending fake stuff for the other company to pay money for to take pictures of. And it would just be like a middle finger or like complete bait. And so there was like courier wars of the most pedantic white collar variety going on between Nike and Adidas at one point. It's fucking hilarious. And all the while the bike couriers are just making more money because like they're getting palmed twice to like do this shady shit. It's fucking hilarious.
That's so amazing.
All right, so where are we taking Chuck Jones?
Oh gosh. I feel like we shouldn't have a high society dinner of some sort. I feel like it's like greasy pizza.
Hell
and
yeah.
Like beer or something like that.
I love Chuck Jones, but his face looks like a piece of greasy pizza.
Yeah, he kind of does. But you know that he could also trick his management into paying for whatever, probably, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Genius.
So, yeah, like whatever. Dinner's on him.
He comes back to life, and you're like, I got you back here. I picked a good place. You're taking care of the bill. Just FYI. All right, so who's your other pick? Who's your second round draft pick after Chuck Jones?
I'm not even a baseball guy, but do you know the story of Rube Waddle?
That name sounds very familiar. Spell it. Rube
Rube, Waddle.
Waddell.
Yeah, Waddell. Yeah, it's probably not Waddle. Waddell, yeah.
Either way. Jesus Christ, that chin.
Yeah. So he was a pitcher in like 1900, and he was incredible. Like he was the person who would like end up striking out multiple people, multiple games at a time. His pitching record ended up like lasting until the 1960s because he was just that good. But he was also like probably the first himbo in history. Like he would pitch, he would be absolutely incredible, but then like he would get distracted by like a fire truck driving down the street. He was known for like stopping a game and chasing fire trucks. Or like if there was a puppy in the audience, he would stop what he was doing and go and play with the puppy. So like
awesome.
he was good enough at his job where they kept hiring him.
Yeah, they didn't fire him for being a complete, like, having, like, ADHD on the craziest scale.
Yeah.
He sees a fishing pole in the audience, he takes it, like, drives away. Like, back.
They would have to bribe him with days off fishing and stuff like that. And, like, I think his first sign-on bonus, he just spent drinking one night. Like, it was like $500 in 1900, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's a house.
And then he'd disappear for the summer. They didn't know where he went until they figured out he was, like, wrestling alligators at a circus.
He was like Dennis Rodman before Dennis Rodman was born.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was absolutely... I think he was probably more bad at... He had Dennis Rodman's reputation, but he was probably... I don't know if Dennis Rodman ever wrestled an alligator.
Yeah. No, but he would go to North Korea and try to stop a war.
Oh, yeah. No,
Love that. That's so awesome. What's your favorite non-traditional curse word?
You know, I used to swear a ton, and now I have a toddler, and she learns a lot, and so I've actually just cut it out completely, and I've started either talking like Jiminy Cricket, which for me is funnier, or Don Knotts. Like, you just. I think that, like, shucks and golly gee and, like, corn nuts and stuff like that, it's just dumb. But it's funny as hell. So I say
corn nuts. Goodness.
Yeah, it's not even near being like swearing. It's just it's like Sesame Street's idea of swearing.
Yeah, exactly. Which is kind of the best. Like, I love swearing as much as the next guy. It's very cathartic, but, like, though it hits so much better, I feel like, just because, like, to use a gaming terminology, the meta is so rife with swearing that when you can find a way to not use it, it's somehow more of an indictment, especially when pointed at someone, and, like, just better. Like, it just, like, hits harder and, like, is more memorable when somebody can just be like, thumb in my eye, and they're just like, what? Like, my brother's favorite one is to, instead of calling somebody like a piece of shit or whatever, he's like, call them a muppet. It's just like, that is a scathing indictment and require, like, and but is and isn't offensive. It's like when you can have the clarity of mind and the, you know, the fascination of tongue to be able to do that. It's just like, it is a real big win.
It's a lot of fun, and it'll, like, actual proper swearing used to get people to stumble and like get them off their game. And I don't know, let's say maybe even the 90s, probably not. It depended on what circles you were in. But, like, nowadays it's so commonplace that in order to really interrupt stuff again and kind of throw people off, like you're saying, you have to say really weird crap. That's not necessarily swearing. It's just funny.
Yeah. All right. I'm giving you, now that we're talking back in time, what life lesson do you wish you learned sooner?
The life lesson that I leaned too far into for a while, but was kind of endemic of everything, was if it's not a good time, at least it'll make a good story.
Yeah.
So and like the easy parallel, again, we've been talking about Chuck Jones and cartoons, is like Wile E. Coyote did not have a good time.
Yeah.
But it's funny as heck with, like, the right timing and editing and stuff. And so I've gathered a number of stories from my time on this earth, and a lot of it is probably not great at the time, but it's funny afterwards. And so I've just kind of learned to, like
comedy is tragedy plus time. Yeah. There's this great, I don't know if you're a fan of it, but one of my all-time favorite TV shows was the show Community by Dan Harmon. Mm-hmm. And it had the fantastic performance by Donald Glover as Troy Barnes. And he has this one situation where he's talking about, he's like, yeah, I was about to get in a fight, and then I saw a punch come my way, and I was like, oh no. And then I was like, this is going to make a really good story. He just says this while, like, looking off camera right to nothing in particular, just kind of like reminiscing about the time he got hit in the face. It's just like, but I mean, that is what it is. It's like, if you can take, have that kind of be in the moment, but like see the moment for what it is and realize that, in a week this is going to be funny, or in a week I'm going to tell somebody and like blow their socks off and just take the L for like the long-term W, and just like not sweat that, you got screwed over and your flight got, delayed or whatever like that. So like,
yeah. And it's put your ego aside for a minute and get through whatever's going on. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like afterwards, it can be a pretty funny story. So
yeah, as long as you have all your limbs about you, fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
What's your favorite meal to make just for yourself, assuming cost and time are not relevant factors?
Ooh. There are... I love cooking. So I absolutely love cooking, and I like making new stuff all the time. But my favorite, probably honestly, chorizo and eggs. Like, just give me some tortillas and some chorizo, and like it's not rocket science. It's very easy. A kid can do it, but I just want to like eating it.
It's like the breakfast protein equivalent of like peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like anybody can do it. Also, it's still always a banger.
Yeah. And it doesn't take long either, so it's not like I'm investing a ton of time. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love investing time in myself for some meals, but that's a nice and easy one, and it's easy to share too. So,
yeah. Well, while we're in the food meal news, if you were a condiment, which do you think you'd be?
Probably hot sauce, Valentina hot sauce, because I use it so dang much. I used to use it on just about everything, but
what is it about Valentina that you just connect with so much?
Honestly, the flavor profile. So like I feel like there's like it's a good sauce. The vinegary stuff like Tabasco, I'm kind of iffy on, as far as like it's good on some things but not all things. I feel like Valentina is more universal. It makes everything a little bit better.
It's the ketchup of hot sauce.
It really is. It really is. And I'd much rather put that on eggs than ketchup on eggs.
Yes. Although I've recently, for the longest time, I was anti-ketchup full stop. And within this last year, it's weird. It's just like, I'm having that like a Joey Walnuts moment. Just like, just when I got out, just drug me back in. I was like off for the longest time. A friend like put it on a dish that we were making. I was like, you put ketchup on it. But I'm hungry and ate it. It's like, fuck, ketchup's awesome. Where have you been? It's like an old friend I haven't talked to because we just like both were hitting on the same chick at a bar, and then I like got sour about it. But now I'm just like, why? Like she was terrible. I'm glad I dodged that bullet. Thank you. Why were we ever angry at each other?
Exactly. And you can pick stuff up again like you never liked.
Speaking of ketchup, what poor man luxury do you still enjoy to this day?
Ooh. Probably this probably is going back to community. But nice socks.
Hell yeah.
Like
I know the reference you're going for, which is the best part. I think
the interview with Larry David.
Yeah, the interview with Larry King, right?
Larry King. I'm sorry. Yeah, Larry David would be a much different.
That would be a great interview, and he would never have asked such an asinine question. Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, that aren't enjoying this moment like we are, there was an interview that Danny Pudi had with Larry King, where Larry King's asking him like what luxuries he enjoys in life, and he's just like, I don't know, like good pair of like socks, because Danny Pudi's a runner, which makes sense if you look at some of the scenes in Community where he runs. His form is actually like somebody that's run a lot of marathons, because Danny Pudi has. And he's like, yeah, like a good pair of like nice socks. And he's like, no, that's not a luxury. And he's like, well, what's a luxury, Larry? He's like, private plane. And just like starts naming like billionaire shit because he's Larry fucking King and doesn't understand what the world is anymore. And Danny just looks at him. He's like, Larry, I'm on fucking DuckTales. What are you talking about? So good. I'll see if I can find the clip and put it in the description. It's like, it's great. But yeah, the nice pair of socks are great. What kind of socks do you prefer when you're going top shelf? Do you prefer like kind of like nice thin? Not satin's not the right the right stuff, but there's like nice thin ones that you'd use if you were like dressing up like it was the 50s, or you can get like those nice wool socks that are super comfortable, arguably like meant for like rock climbing or hiking or something like that. What kind of sock area do you lean towards?
So I really like large, like thick wool socks. I used to do hiking a long time ago, and wool socks last forever, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. But I mean, when you're backpacking, you have like 2 pairs of socks on, which is its own weird thing. But I still have like these large fluffy socks, and I love wearing them. It's just,
well, the best. You get to wear it. You get to live the best life of having socks, but not worry about ruining them, like walking on the floor in the house. So you get to live like your 8-year-old dream that your dad would get annoyed at you, like, no, take off your socks, or put on shoes. They don't want to wear out those socks, or blah 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 blah. And now you're just like, it's my own house. Shut up, Dad. You're an imagination, and also I'm not going to wear out these socks. They're fucking wool.
Exactly. It's like it's you're not wearing the onesie, right? You're a step up from that now. You're a big boy, big girl, whatever. You're a big kid now, but you have nice socks.
Mommy, wow, I've got big socks now. What's your favorite non-exercise thing you have to force yourself to do?
Ooh, I don't know if this counts, because I feel like it's still exercise, but like meditation. No,
that's definitely 100%. As someone that skipped it this morning is going to do it after this podcast. Now he's been reminded. Yeah, it's so. Oh God, yes, that it's so cathartic when you do it, but like sitting down to do nothing is like the most, especially in like American hustle and bustle of Los Angeles, where we both reside. It's just like, I got shit to do, and I'm not going to get it all done today. So I need to sit down for, however many minutes and do nothing, focus on my breathing and not the 10 spinning plates above me for the next hour. Like, what?
Yeah. God. Yeah, it's funny to try to put it on a calendar and be like, no, I'm actively doing nothing during this time.
Yeah,
like,
this is the time where I do nothing. No. So we can fill that slot. No. I'm doing nothing. It's not empty space. It's full of nothing. Are you? What do you have a preferred type? Because it's interesting that there are so many for something that is so, obviously base, but at the same time it is infinite. Is there a type of meditation that you kind of lean towards?
No. So fun, not necessarily. There are a lot of different techniques that I like using. Quick backstory, I went to school for psychology, and so I was equipped with a lot of tools at that time, because a couple of my teachers were real, I don't know if you want to say forward thinking or just hippies or whatever, but they were like, stress will kill you. Here are a bunch of ways to deal with stress. And they taught me like 5 different ways of meditating, which was kind of nice. So like progressive muscle relaxation, and like, I forgot the one that's just being in the moment and not like processing any sensory stimuli. Is
it transcendental?
No, transcendental was neat, but that also, I associate that with quieting of the mind. But there's also, I think it's mindfulness, where you're basically wandering around wandering around is something that you can do at higher levels, but like just kind of like reacting like a toddler, where like you don't see grass, you see green and light and whatever, and you just kind of like stop your mind from processing any of it. And you
try to get really high without being high.
Basically,
blue, and just like, what are you doing?
And it's nice for like a new perspective thing. But yeah, I also do the transcendental thing where like close your eyes, like count, breathe deep. I don't have a cone or anything like that I repeat to myself. It's just more like.
I thought you were going somewhere else. I heard cone. I was like, why would you wear a cone while doing meditation?
Well, just
I have puts on dunce cap. Goes, I am basic.
Yeah. I just kind of try whatever works as far as that goes.
And that's like the best thing I found out when meditating is so much, like, because I feel like the American public was taught for a long time, this is the way you meditate. This is meditation. It's like, And it's as finally the mic has been passed to people that actually know what the fuck they're talking about. They're like, nah, just do whatever makes you like feel better, basically. It's like if this works for you, that's meditation. If that doesn't, then find one that does, and that's your meditation. Like, it doesn't fucking matter.
And that's this is probably bridging onto a new topic, but like I feel like that's true with a lot of stuff where people will tell you, hey, there's one way to do something, and that's not really true. Someone once told me when I was growing up, and I don't even know if this is true, but like that when a friend of theirs went to cooking school, chef's college, whatever it is, and they said they had like for an entire semester they just were taught new ways to make an apple pie.
Oh, that's fucking rad.
Yeah, and kind of like the lesson was like there's more than one way to do just about everything. So like just there's a reason for all of these choices, but like learn new ways to do shit.
Turns out those yokels are right. There is more than one way to skin a cat.
Oh yeah, I mean there's
I'm not going to go into it here because I don't want to.
Oh yeah. You know, sideways.
On my second channel, we'll show you.
Cat skinning 101, yeah. But like I mean there's a TED talk on how to tie your shoes. I mean there's new ways to do everything, and just find a way that works for you, and then figure out the other ways and why people do them. That's really it.
Yeah, it is such an interesting thing. How long do you generally spend meditating?
Well,
or how much time do you like to set aside? I guess it's probably a better way of saying it.
I set aside half an hour. What I actually get is very different depending on my schedule.
Yeah.
If I can stretch more than that, that's great. If I can, if I have to do less than that, that's probably more common. But yeah, just giving time to breathe and kind of clear your mind and figure stuff out.
Is that the way you start your day? Do you like when do you like to time yours?
It depends on my day, honestly. I would, in an ideal world, I would love to start my day like that. Realistically, I found a lot of times I need it in the middle of the day because I need like a reset button.
Yeah.
And it's easier than like a nap or something else.
Yeah, that's one that my father does that I've never been able. He's like, yeah, I take a 10-minute nap in the middle of the day. I'm like, if I do that, I'm not waking up, and if I do wake up, the day sucks. Because I'm like half grog, half like, oh, I got to do this again.
Yeah, I can't do that. I can't nap. And honestly, one way that I meditate, and this is a weird way to call it meditation, but like, if I cook myself a nice lunch, I will just like zone out.
Yeah.
And just like spend time like, okay, I'm doing nothing but chopping this onion and like just.
Yeah, you're taking your mind away from your day and putting it into your kitchen.
Exactly, quieting the mind and just kind of like letting my body do the work, and it's nice. It's multitasking with meditation, which is probably not the best way to do it. But
I mean, it's kind of like there's a couple like huge thinkers and like people that we look up to that took on second jobs, not because of the money, because it was something to quiet their mind from thinking, to allow their like posterior brain stem to like fucking think of shit while they were focused on, like delivering parcels or sorting the mail or, something relatively benign, so that their brain could just kind of cook without their like, undue pressure on it.
Oh, absolutely. And I've also found that if I step away from work for a while, coming back to it, I can get a fresh set of eyes. So whether
the most pedantic comparison I have to that is that's the way I do Wordle. If I don't instantly get it, I just set it down for an hour and I come back to it. I'm like, boom, got it. And it's like snap into it, but like you get too close to it. I mean, it's like the essence of it is you're in the forest. You can't see the trees. All you can see is the ground.
Yeah. And like we talked a little bit before we started recording, like the way I do, I've done everything from like writing to, comics, cartoons, whatever. I'll oftentimes just set something aside. And if it's a personal project, I can come back to it like a week later and say, oh, this is terrible. Like, what was I thinking? Or, hey, I'm stuck on this. Like coming back, whether it's, after lunch or whatever, it's, you can see the forest again. You're not just focusing on the trees, which is wonderful.
I remember hearing some, don't think it was James Cameron, but it might have been some director, or some writer director talking about that being the way they like to write scripts, is they write until the impetus is gone, and they'll write more if it comes to them, and they'll keep it loose. But if they ever find themselves forcing, they just immediately set the project down and don't touch it until like, and they just like leave it for a while and they come back. And if, you know, inspiration is there, they go. If not, but the idea of being like, you know, trying to glean like water from a stone is just like, it's just all you're going to end up with is just this forced, choppy, you know, story, dialogue, whichever. And it's just like, it's not going to feel authentic.
You know, it's funny. There are actually two schools of thought on this, because I've heard that. I've heard that quite a bit. And there's also, I think the book is The War of Art. A clever take, you know, instead of The Art of War. And it's the guy who wrote, the golf movie. The golf movie with Will Smith a long time ago.
The Legend of Bagger Vance?
Yeah. So he was the one that wrote the book. And he said the opposite. He's like, you put a certain amount of time set aside for the day and you sit down and you work. And it doesn't matter what comes out. You just work. And he's like, I have like 10 pages I write a day, or 20 pages, whatever his thing is. And he's like, and then I'm done.
I think the idea behind the person that said this was not that you don't do that.
Yeah.
But that you just have, you maybe just like juggle until you like, you find it like the right thing for your headspace. But no, I think that one is by and large, like the idea of letting, you know, letting the muse come to you, I think is of like a older school of thought that I don't want to say wrong, but it definitely yields less results.
Yeah. I mean, I think both of them are really good tools in ways that you work, but just like when you're, you know, building IKEA furniture necessarily, you know, even with IKEA furniture, you need more than one tool, right? Yeah. And so you have to learn when to switch between them. And I think that's probably the key. Yeah.
There was this great, it was on a Pete Holmes podcast. I don't remember who he was talking to, but he's talking about writing. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember his name or the guest brought up this idea that, I think it was some quote, but that writing or any kind of creative process really, it's like opening up a shop. Yeah. You can't control when the people come in to buy an item, or to, you know, you can't control when the muses come in to, you know, purchase, to give you like, you know, creative money, if you will. All you can do is have the shop open so that they can come in and do that, as opposed to expecting them to come to you without opening the shop. And so like the way he did it was very much, you know, you just, this writer was like, okay, I open up the shop at 8 a.m. I close the shop at 2 p.m. And hopefully, you know, I sit there and I try to write, and hopefully the muse comes in and decides that they want to, you know, buy a pot, or they want, you know, want to give me some, you know, currency. For the record, The Legend of Bagger Vance was written by Stephen Pressfield.
Thank you.
What inanimate object would you be best friends with were it sentient?
Probably my oldest friend would be the Bic Crystal pen, ballpoint pen. I've been using them since probably high school, which was over 20 years ago, which is embarrassing to say. And
these are like the old school.
Yeah, and they're like a couple bucks for like 30 of them or something.
Yeah.
And I have been using them for drawing ever since I was in high school, probably before that. And so they're great. I use them for like, even now when I'm working on stuff that like eventually I need paint for, or I need a computer for, or I need something else for, I'll start with a Bic pen. And it's great. They're durable as heck. And if I lose it, I have like 10 more in my drawer. So
yeah, there's no like, oh, my favorite pen. It's like, all right, whatever. It's like owning bunny rabbits as opposed to owning like a horse or something like that. You lose one. Don't worry, they left behind 30 other of their like little furry friends.
Exactly. Or like a goldfish, you know. Is this the same one? I don't know, probably.
It doesn't know, and neither do I. Moving on. Do you have a life hack you'd like to share with the class to improve their daily living?
Probably going back to what we said before, which is just there's more than one way to do anything. So yeah, teachers will often tell you one way, and like in the art world, it's like watching Bob Ross, like the Afro guy, like paint an entire photorealistic oil painting in 30 minutes in one go. Or, you know, the TED Talk is how to tie your shoes differently, right? There's more than one way to do anything. There isn't necessarily a wrong way. Some ways are better than others. I mean, there's new math. I mean,
yeah.
Math
much to my dismay as a tutor.
Yeah, but these things work for some people, and it's like learning. Like, okay, there's more than I think the saying is there's more than one path to the top of the mountain.
Yeah,
and there are reasons that people do things differently, right? Whether it's how you hold a pen or how you bake a cake or whatever it is. Find a way that works best for you. I mean, I paint, but I cannot paint like Bob Ross in that I can't finish in one sitting. And I also don't work on one painting at a time. I have 3 paintings going on. And so one of them is like very early stages and just slap stuff down. The idea stage. One of them is kind of like filling everything in, and one of them is just details. And so if I get stuck, I can switch quickly. Because that's kind of the school of thought where I'm just, I don't have to worry about like my muse doing one thing. If my muse is doing something else, I can just switch gears and catch up. And that's really with everything. And trying new ways of doing stuff is a great way to know whether or not it's right for you. Like, you might fail at it for a while, but was it Jake from Adventure Time? Like, sucking at something is how
the first step towards becoming kind of good at something.
Exactly. And so you
may or may not have that poster at work.
Yeah, and like that's kind of like, look, I do pictures for a living. I draw, I paint, I do all sorts of. I haven't always done that, and I had to fail a lot before I got where I was, and I got a lot of no's and rejections. And like, for me, it was instead of like. I looked at it differently. I was like, okay, my goal is to get like rejected from, you know, these 10 studios this year. Like, or you know, these are great art galleries. Let's make them look at my art and get rejected from them. And like, you know, it's
awesome. If you made did you actually make it so that like the objective was to get rejection, so that if you got an acceptance, you're like, damn it.
Yeah. And like, I got some pretty nasty rejections at first, but some people actually, you know, gave me some tips as far as where I was going, and that if I was too afraid to stick my neck out, I wouldn't have never gotten any farther. Have
you heard the story of Stephen King and his rejection biz?
No.
This is one of my favorite ones. So Stephen King graduates high school, is like, I'm going to become a writer. And this is in hold on, how old is Stephen King? I should know how old he was so he's 75. So he was 18. That's 57 years ago. Take off 23. That's 34 years ago. This is 1976. My math isn't terrible. So in 1976, he starts writing. Him and his brother start, writing and submitting stuff. Stephen a bit more than his brother, I believe. And he sent out just stuff, and he's an 18-year-old. It fucking sucked. Like, I don't think he went to like that many writing classes, and he wasn't this prodigy. He was just didn't want to quit, and you can see that in his work ethic, where it's like he writes like 2,000 words a day. Which talking to other writers, they're like, that's fucking insane. Like, the amount, like, just putting that much ink to paper is wild.
Yeah.
But he started off and he's just writing, sending, and he started getting back rejection letters. Some of them mean, some of them just very clearly they read one page and went nope, and just just clicked print on the Xerox and then just sent him the rejection letter. Mm-hmm. And so he was getting so many that initially they were a stack on his desk, and that was too many. So he put, to his mother's, I'm sure, just loving reaction, he put a nail in his wall, like a short order cook, and started sticking them through the nail on the wall. And he got so many rejection letters before ever getting an acceptance letter that the nail came out of the wall.
That's amazing.
And so instead of being like, oh man, he just literally, his first thought, and this is like why he's Stephen fucking King, he's like, I guess I need a bigger nail. So he went down to Home Depot, got like a fucking, spike, stuck it in the wall, put him on that. I don't remember if the second one fell out. It doesn't really fucking matter. Just like get a bigger nail. Like that's the takeaway. It's just like, just get as many no's as humanly possible.
I think that's I think to rephrase the answer, it's like, don't be afraid of rejection. I mean, you're going to get a whole lot of no's. There's a whole lot of no's in the path to one yes. Yeah.
And if there's not, you have less character. So, take that. No.
Yeah. And look at all the practice you get, out of doing all this.
Who would you want to play you in a movie of your life? You can choose the time period of your life that's being showcased and the time period of the actor if they are no longer of the right age but were once.
So I would probably, I'm trying to think of what would make the best movie. I've been told I look like I looked when I was younger like Jason Sudeikis. And so younger Jason Sudeikis, because he's older than I am at this point. Oh, well, he always has been, I guess, but that's how ages work.
There was one time I was older than him, and then he just kept on going, and I was like,
I would probably have him play me in my transition from like weird corporate dude to being like a full-time artist. Because there were a lot of really weird things that happened during that time, and he plays a really good like straight man in a very weird like he's kind of oblivious sometimes. Yeah. You can see that in some of his earlier work, like Horrible Bosses, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. He tries to play serious, but he's really he's just in ridiculous circumstances, and like that was me for quite some time. Now I just to give you an idea, I picked up like I worked as a corporate like middle manager. Like I fired people for a living. And
that's the most gratifying of all jobs.
Oh God, it was terrible.
I work here now. You don't. Bye. King of Mountain, go.
Well, like I was super young doing the job too. Like I got this job at 25,
like and in your 20s, firing people in their 40s who were just trying to pay for their house,
and having to tell them like, no, this is how this works when they had been working there longer than I had been alive. Like it's such a weird experience. But so like, fucked. Yeah, it was really screwed up. But like because like they always brought me in when like the company was being bought or sold or restructured. And so like I was always like the bad guy. And it was weird. And so like I stopped doing that. I moved out to San Francisco at the time and started in a startup, which was its own weird thing. But like while I was doing that, and I had bright purple, I dyed my hair bright purple, and it was purple for like 7 years. And then but I was like just wandering around, purple haired dude with like a tiny cute dog. And so
so you fit right in San Francisco.
So I fit right in, but like I couldn't hide in the background at all. And this was oh gosh, almost 10 years ago. And I was not living in like the nicest areas, and I unwittingly started getting protected by the gangs in the areas. Yeah. So like
people accidentally had like gang protection for for an unknown reason.
Absolutely. That's I was just oblivious to all of it.
The Hell's Guardian Angels.
Kind of, yeah. Like I had a guy on PCP trying to mess with me, and all of a sudden, like I was like trying to calmly walk away. I went into a store, and the guy tried to corner me by the counter, and suddenly the clerk is like, "You don't mess with our friend!" And like two guys who I had not seen before, and they were probably 6'8", just came out of nowhere, and the guy disappeared. And they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah," and I didn't see him again.
Yeah, and also, who are you?
Yeah. So like the neighborhood knew me, and like it wasn't until afterwards I was trying to tell the story to like my parents, where I was just like, oh, I was getting gang protection. Like I like
just look at your mom. Did you perhaps send money to a biker gang or something? Oh, so it's like a Christmas present I didn't know about.
Yeah, like I had people flat out say, like, you got to get out of here. We're about to murder someone. Like that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was just like cartoonishly weird. And then I was in a cartoonishly weird job.
Yeah.
And I was like drawing all the time and getting in trouble for that at work a lot of the time. And so it was just, it's a comedy that writes itself. I could probably be played by Charlie Day and no one would blink an eye.
That sounds like a Charlie Day movie more than a Jason Sudeikis movie, but I can confirm that you have very many Jason Sudeikis features. And I believe Jason could pull off the movie as he is a very amazing actor. So that all tracks. Well, speaking of purple hair, let me give you a hypothetical. You're going out to a party and you want to look radical. Other than your normal garb, what accessory do you add to your ensemble?
Ooh, that's tough. What are we doing a fancy party or like dressing up? Or are we doing like
whichever kind of party you want to be going to?
I got a gift a few years ago, and I wear this to any like fancy dress party that I have the chance to, and it is a bright gold tuxedo top.
Hell
like
yeah.
Metallic gold and black tuxedo top. And it's like, I don't know, the guy got it off of some costume designer. So it's like fancy. It's not like Alibaba. It's actually some designer. But I used to wear that between that, like a purple mohawk and just go to like a fancy dress party and
be very noticeable.
Yeah. It was. I just kind of leaned into not being a wallflower. Like I couldn't be ignored.
Yeah, that's the way to play around. Like if you have wallflower proclivities, is just dye your hair purple, like old suits. Like, oh, I guess I've removed this from my repertoire. Speaking of removing things from one's repertoire, what's a job that at some point in your life you wanted to pursue but are very glad you didn't get?
Ooh, I think the answer there. I went to school for psychology, and I wanted to be a therapist for quite some time. And so I was trained. I have my bachelor's Bachelor of Science in psychology, and I really wanted to do. I guess this is probably the more professional answer. And I really wanted to do it, and I ran an ad hoc clinic when I was in college, and I had two people during that time tell me that I saved their life, which is like a weird thing, and an amazing thing. But like the college I went to also had this thing, motto, whatever, where it's like you got to learn by doing. So we're going to assign you some like low risk people, and you're going to be their therapist.
Yeah.
And I had a woman assigned to me. I mean, we were both in college, so like someone my age who was like stressed and depressed that her mom and dad stopped paying fully for her beach house. And I wanted to like just grab her and shake her and yell at her, and I couldn't.
Turns out that's an unethical practice.
Well, it was actually a school of thought at one point by Fritz Perls, but that's not what I was taught.
That'd be amazing if you came back and there's like, so we heard you shook a patient like they were a newborn in the 50s. Why'd you do that? Well, you see, in this 1800s thing, this guy postulated that shaking a client would wake them the fuck up to reality.
Oh, this guy was like in the 1980s or 70s, and he just hit people with like Nerf bats. Yeah, no, it's a whole thing.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I at that point I was like, I can't listen to this.
I came here to actually help people, not help you be delusional.
Yeah, well, and I luckily I had some like people who like professors who I had been with for a few years, and they were just like, because there was an institution nearby, and they were like, don't go there. You're a nice person. And like, and like, not like it would make me mean, but it would like, I guess I was too delicate or something for that. And they were just, there were two mental institutions, and one was for the criminally, I don't know if criminally insane is the right way to put it, but like one were convicted convicts, and one was, I guess, pedestrian. And either way, like, yeah. And like the stories I heard from there from my classmates, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't work there.
Yeah.
And I just, after a while, I was like, whether I could help people or not, I know I'm going to take this work home with me. And I'm glad I didn't keep doing that.
It turns out it's an easier bag to carry a bunch of pens and drawings than it is the metaphysical weight of somebody complaining about a beach house.
Yeah. I can deal with someone complaining about my drawings. That's a lot easier than like someone dealing with, either like the really light stuff or like the really heavy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want somewhere in the middle where somebody's going through something that's like relatable, tangible, and understandable, as opposed to beach house or I'm thinking about ending everything. It's like you want to find that happy middle where they're like, I just hate my job and my boyfriend sucks. You're like, got you.
Yeah. Or like I want to stop chewing gum as much. Like something lower stakes.
Something lower stakes, but like something that you can appreciate somebody's having a difficult time with. You're like, that I get you. That makes sense. You should not want to do that. And here, let me help you. And if I fuck this up, you just chew gum. It's fine. What media, whether it be book, graphic novel, TV show, or movie, have you been putting off that is next on your to consume list that, given the opportunity, you just can't wait to break open?
Oh man, so I have an entire notes in my notes app on my phone. I have an entire list of TV shows and movies that I want to watch, and they're like 3 years old. So I am not at the cutting edge of pop culture. And to be fair, there was a while where like I didn't want to watch a TV show until there was an ending.
Fact. Yeah. You're just like, I need to know how much I'm getting into here.
Yeah. And like, is it going to end like Lost, where I mean, you
get to wait here if the ending was like passable.
Yeah.
Not if you're just like, oops, like I wasted 4 years.
Exactly. And like to their credit, there was just like an expose that came out about like what a terrible time like the writers had. Yeah. But yeah, like I have, oh my gosh, there are like 50 movies on here. Sorry, I just opened it up to see how I am very far behind.
If one doesn't stand out, feel free to just read off from a section.
Let's see. There was Guns Akimbo, which
I think that was a cool idea, but ended up being a pass for a lot of people.
That's fair. I still haven't seen it, and I'm years behind on that. I
think you're better off just watching Swiss Army Man instead if you want to see.
Swiss Army Man was amazing. It was
amazing. So weird.
I still need to watch Mad Men.
Yeah.
And I've been told by multiple people who know me, they're like, oh, you really need to watch this. And so it's just, I need to
It'll make you want to put back on your golden suit, that's for sure.
Let's see, what else is there? There's, oh my gosh, there are a lot of foreign horror movies. So like, I love horror, but I can't watch it when my wife is home. So I end up watching it, and I have a toddler, so I have to wait until the toddler goes to bed.
So you have to do the married man insane thing of just like wandering in the streets, just looking at your phone. They're like, oh, that poor man. It's like, no, he's just living his best life watching a horror movie.
Oh no! So I actually wait until my wife is out of town on work, and then like I put my kid to bed, so it's the middle of the night. And
you're just like destroying boxes and boxes of popcorn, just like speed running horror movies.
I am, but then I'm alone at home, and like I'm like, okay, what was that noise? And like, my dog barks at everything. Like there's a shadow, there's some wind, like he's gonna bark, and so I'm always just constantly terrified. It's great. It's great.
I feel like that's such a privileged. Like, I feel like that's like a showcasing of white privilege is like enjoying horror movies, knowing that you're going to end up being scared. You're like, what's the worst that could happen? I live in, Glendale or, whatever. This crime doesn't happen here.
Yeah. I mean, when I met my wife, we were living in Oakland, and I remember laying in bed with her and playing the game Guns or Fireworks.
Love it.
You got real good at that game.
It sounds like a upscale, like a more dangerous version of this game we used to play up in Humboldt County, which was Millionaire or Homeless.
Oh yeah.
So for those of you that have never had the pleasure, and I mean that quite literally, it is a pleasure being up in Humboldt County. I would recommend it to anyone given the time and opportunity. But at least back in the day when I was up there, weed was still very much illegal. It was like legal in the county, it like very much in quotation marks. In that like it was so weird. So it was state legal, county legal, not federally legal. So if you had the right permits, you could still get busted by the feds. The feds could come and like raid your op, and that was completely legal for them to do that. But it wasn't legal for the state troopers or like the local police to do it. Which is like the weirdest fucking thing is that like half the country could like fuck with you, but the other like the local half couldn't.
Yep.
But so there's people growing weed all the time, and selling it is illegal, but people like nobody ever got really caught for that as far as they know. But you have these people that would do these grow ops out in like the boonies in Humboldt County, and you know be living with a backpack's worth of clothes for 4 to 5 months, smelling ratchet as shit. And so when they finally came back with their millions of dollars to society, they had gotten accustomed to their smell, so they usually just didn't get gear or take good care of it, and so they're walking around looking like they sleep in a shack, but they actually, you know, own a dozen shacks, or you know, however you want to typify it. And so we would just be in the central of Arcata having a, you know, a nice slice of Smugs pizza, all out Smugs, and just watching people walk around and be like, homeless, millionaire. And occasionally the way we played the game is like call, and then you doubled the bet, or you effectively made the bet, and then they would go check. They had to go find out, either go listen to them talk, see if they like pulled out a wad of money, you know, like so in some way ascertain whether they were in fact one or the other, and then the other person would have to like buy a drink or whatever. Like that is the most fun. I don't know if that game is still like operational, in that weed's now very legal in California, and so like that might have taken away that aspect. But yeah, it's similar sort of thing. But like, oh, I got this one.
Oh yeah. I remember I knew people that would do seasonal work, and it was you get a lot of money very quickly in all cash.
Yeah, my favorite like seeing of this was there is a time in November that the growers will just appear, and I worked for the longest time, for over a decade. I worked in the casino industry, and while I was up there, I was working at a casino, and I'm dealing poker. And one night, this kid comes in. He's just having the best time of his life. Smiles all around. His beer glass is never empty, and he is just enjoying life. I believe he's offering to buy drinks to anybody at the table who wants them. And he's wearing a button-up that is nice, but also not ironed, and looks like it's been worn for 3 days, and it very well could have been. And in the chest pocket, he keeps. This is a 1-2 no limit hold'em poker game, and usually when you're playing 1-2 no limit hold'em, you have $1 chips and $5 chips, and sometimes even $25 chips. He is reaching into his pocket and pulling out a $100 chip, setting it down, and when it is his turn, he just pushes it forward without particularly looking at his cards, and just going all in every hand and just reaching into his pocket. And he did this for hours, just like burning money, never at all phasing his demeanor. And then he finally reached in, shuffled around a little bit more, saw there was empty, he goes, "Dang!" in that tone, and just got up and left. Didn't say, the weird thing is he didn't say goodbye to anyone. It's not like he knew that he had no friends here, but was just enjoying being in the room, and then just left and went, I don't know where, but it definitely wasn't like all of his, it's not like he went broke and had like no feelings about it. He just, you know, spent the money that he'd put in his pocket for gambling that day and just like sauntered off into the woods or whatever. It's fucking amazing. So yeah, like the idea of money after, when you're like living in half like a Winnebago for 4 months, and then you just suddenly have like a trove. It's like, what is money? Like the idea of money is so abstract at that point.
Man, that's crazy to think about. I knew someone that blew through a bunch of money. A long time ago, I had an employee that had I guess their brother or cousin was living in Mexico, and they were a stats person.
Mm.
And they started calculating the odds on the local lottery. And based on like frequency, they figured that some of the balls that the lottery pulls were like weighted differently. And it was just enough that like they ended up doing the lottery and like using stats to back it. Because I guess they weren't like changing the lottery balls out fast enough or something. And they won the lottery. And they spent through all of their winnings, did it, and then went back and did it and won a second time and then somehow spent through it all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Or either the lottery they're getting paid on is very small, or they have very good taste.
It's probably neither. It was. It sounded like they just made a lot of like bad decisions and lent a lot of money to people or something like the.
Speaking of lottery, apparently I was hearing something recently. I'm sure either you or the listeners at home have heard this, that like 70% of people that win end up broke.
Oh yeah, yeah, and
that's like completely
dead
bullshit.
Or something.
Like that is a completely like fabricated stat by like some guy and just took off like wildfire. It's like akin to the whole like, you know, do the same thing over and over and like expect different results is like sign of insanity. It's like, no, it's not. That's literally the scientific method. Like, and Albert Einstein very much did not say that, but like it's been passed around so much in, you know, just like casual conversation that everybody believes it's true and knows who it's in quotes attributed to. It's like, no, just, you know, somebody said it once and it was like such a good soundbite. It just like traveled the world indefinitely. Okay. Well, before we pontificate too much, we're going to throw it to commercial break. But before we do, if you could have listeners of this podcast hear one song of your choosing, which would it be?
Oh man. So I categorize my music by what I'm doing while I'm listening to the music. And by far, like if you have anywhere to drive late at night where you can drive fast or there aren't a lot of people on the road.
So not Los Angeles.
Not Los Angeles unless it's like 2 years ago during COVID in the middle of the night.
Oh yeah, that was the best.
Or you're just driving up like the 5, you know, in the middle of nowhere in California.
Yeah.
Listen to Carpenter Brute's album Trilogy. The album's called Trilogy.
Yeah.
And if you want to know what the heck you're getting into, either listen to or watch the music video for the song Turbo Killer. It is a weird 80s throwback. Carpenter Brut is like this French band, DJ, whatever, that basically liked the sound of John Carpenter movies and made a band out of it.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Big fan. When I saw that in the notes, I was like, yes, somebody else that fucks with Carpenter Brut. And it is just like, he scored a movie recently, some like weird horror sci-fi movie. Was completely scored by Carpenter Brut. Let me see if I can, while we're doing shout outs. Blood Machines came out in 2019. It's a musical sci-fi horror movie that's 50 minutes long. That's awesome.
That sounds about right. I wonder.
It was put out by Shudder too, so it's gonna be just something.
Man, I love Shudder.
It's great.
I know we're supposed to go to commercial, but geez, Shudder's amazing, and you can find everything from like the movie about jeans that kills people, like Blue Jeans.
Yeah, are they the same people that did? I don't think so, but it kind of that reminds me of. Do you ever see Rubber?
Oh, the tire. Yeah.
Yeah. Did Shudder put out Rubber, or was it somebody else? I feel like it was like Telescope or something like that.
I feel like it wasn't Shudder, but then they picked it up.
Yeah, it sounds like something that like it looks like it was Magnolia Pictures or Magnet release. Yeah, it was by Magnet. That's so great. Yeah, that's another just like what the fuck. Like, yeah, why not? All right, let's do the thing. Anyway, with those hilarious tidbits, we're gonna throw it to our first break. Feel free to stick around and enjoy this totally real commercial, or take a minute to enjoy Turbo Killer by Carpenter Brut. Or if you really wanted to hear a song from a previous episode, check out the playlist on Spotify. Passionate People and Preposterous Peeps Podcast, Song Rex. It's a long title, I know. Don't worry, there's a link in the description. Either way, see you in a bit. Do you ever find yourself sitting around with an emptiness inside your soul or larger than preferred vacuous space? Would you like to change that? I thought so. Now introducing Stuff. For when you have nothing to do but important things. Stuff. For when you're lacking personality and intrigue. Stuff. When the world has taken a pickaxe-sized chunk out of your heart. Stuff. And if Stuff no longer fulfills these needs, please don't hesitate to look into our life-enhancing product, Addiction. Welcome back, everybody. So, Justin, what is your passion that you've brought with you today?
Well, my my favorite thing to do is, well, I really like storytelling. And as someone that works, I've worked in animation, I've worked in comics. I've gotten to do that a bit, but storytelling in general, I just think is amazing. Everything from like knock jokes to books to whatever. And especially if we really want to nerd out, like really get deep into it, I like the way that stories are told and how they change over time. So like fairy tales. You have, let's say Little Red Riding Hood. When you were told Little Red Riding Hood, how did it end?
The huntsman kills the wolf. Or the huntsman cuts open the wolf and the grandma's still alive inside, because that's how that shit works when you're 6.
Yeah. And there's a version after that. There's a more G-rated version where grandma's like locked in the closet or something.
Yeah.
But the wolf still dies. But
wolf's gotta go.
But that's a thing. But the original version, like the earliest tellings of that version of the story, there was no huntsman. It was like the wolf was dressed as the grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
The grandmother was basically telling the little girl, "Oh, you're great. Come cuddle with grandma. Come get in bed with grandma and cuddle." And that's kind of how it ends. Is like Little Red Riding Hood climbing into bed with a predator, a literal predator, and the predator basically like looking at the camera, smiling and winking, and having it fade to black. Like it's a cautionary tale for children to like not trust adults. And it's changed a ton.
Yeah. I mean, like that's it was. I don't think this was a Hans Christian Andersen, but it's in that same like storytelling process of like the way Hansel and Gretel went, the way the Gingerbread Man went, the way all of those went. Of it doesn't actually have a happy ending. It is just like, and this is why you don't do this. Like it was the like parents' cryptic version of like what were those stories that Jesus used to tell?
Parables?
Yeah, it's like the medieval like parables of a sort, where it's just like it ends with you learning a lesson, except you're just like, God damn, it's dark in here, isn't it?
Yeah, like someone pointed out to me that that Goldilocks was like teaching you to lock your door. Or something like that. Like that's how long ago they made it. It's just like
that was the
basic security.
Like, yeah, don't break into as many bear houses as you want. Just make sure to lock the door once you do. They can't open it. They don't have like opposable thumbs. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's like I love that kind of stuff. And like I got into a discussion with a film. I don't know, someone who really likes film. I don't know what their official title was, but they some writer that really liked film, and he was talking about like the change, how zombies changed over the last like 40 years.
Oh yeah.
And so like Night of the Living Dead was like a bunch of like zombies just stumbling around, and that was, and like people around you turning and being
later.
Overwhelmed.
Yeah, they start just running.
Yeah, and like the walking ones, it was during the Red Scare. Like people were secretly turning into communists, and like you were scared of your neighbor, and like they could overwhelm you. And to a certain extent, it was also like a commentary on consumerism. But like, after
the initial one was about like mall culture, and that was his the maybe not Night of the Living Dead, but like the first what was the one where they're in a mall. They like remade it like at least once or twice.
Yeah, it was still Romero, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
But that one, it was a response to mall culture and the way he saw people going around and being like, just like, like being subservient to brands, like being like, ooh, the Gap, and just like heading towards the Gap. And that was the impetus behind it.
Right. But like, I think the other part of it was, and the way that it caught popularity, when zombies started sprinting.
Yeah.
Like not shuffling, but like sprinting. That was around the same time that like you had individual actors as terrorists. So you weren't scared of like a group of people. You were scared of one person doing something out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And so it was very much a reflection of the times. And so it's kind of neat that like if you go back, horror is really good at this, but really any storytelling, you can look at what people valued at the time, and you can see it in the way that they tell stories. I mean, there's even a joke. Oh, go ahead.
So there's an interesting, you're very much reminding me of, I think it was an episode of the Cracked podcast. They had one of their guys who goes by, can't remember his pseudonym. Anyway,
and he's talking about how those have changed. And there's an interesting parallel, not only between vampires and zombie movies are made with depending on who's in office. If a Republican's in office, you have zombie movies. If a Democrat's in office, you have vampire movies. It's because it's what the others fear. Because the way Democrats view Republicans is they're stupid. They're this horde of stupidity that is insurmountable. And the way Republicans view Democrats is there's these sex-crazed people that can change you. So thus vampires who are predominantly sexually, promiscuous, gender fluid, and they can change you into one of them. And like it's this theory, and it holds like scaringly true if you look at the years things are being made up until the recent thing where franchises just like never stopped. Walking Dead went through both Republican and Democrat, and then Republican and then Democrat, because the show can never die like the zombies. And so like that one kind of changed, but up until that point it was shockingly like tracking. I don't know if it's just like happenstance, but it's like, oh, that kind of makes sense, like the way they're viewed. But yeah, like they did, like you're saying, they do, like those stories did like change so much with what was in pop culture, and like what kind of like we were saying earlier with the meta thing of like what had come before, what can we do next, how can we make this current, would you say?
Yeah And it's really neat because some of them are like very subtle changes, and potentially unintentional. I mean, if the scholarly example, if you want to get into like book learning stuff, is like look at The Last Supper. The Last Supper has been painted a lot over the centuries, but if you look at the portion sizes, they actually get larger as we get more recent.
So people don't feel bad about the food they're shoveling into their face.
Yeah. And like the average amount that people are eating is so much more. So that's kind of ridiculous. But then also they're like much more like turn on your head kind of weird things. Horror is good at that because like you're ultimately kind of addressing what people are absolutely scared of at the time.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, look at early 90s horror. Early 90s is something that like really bothers me a lot, and hasn't aged very well because it's kind of funny because you have like, if a woman is sleeping with anyone, this is where you get like a lot of the rules of horror.
Oh yeah,
is
like
from,
if they have sex, they get dead.
Yeah. Oh no, they're into premarital sex. Well, they're gonna die. And like
she defied Jesus.
Yeah, and like the weird like very like Christian values person, sometimes explicitly so, is the one that like saves the day, or like there's a Deus Ex Machina kind of thing where like.
It's up there with like they named. I think it's especially in the 90s, but I mean still to this day. If you look at the name of the main character, if they are white, they have a very Christian metaphorical name, whether it's Shepherd or Joseph. It's like, all right, we fucking get it. Like they're just like one step away from Jesus, basically, like at all times.
Yeah. And it's so frustrating to see some of that stuff because it feels ham-fisted,
Oh yeah. When did you first get into storytelling as like not looking at it and being like, oh, that's cool, but being like, I want to throw my hat in the ring?
Oh gosh. So, I mean, if you count it this way, I grew up in like I was born in the early 80s, so like I'm an older millennial, and so I remember like I'm like the Oregon Trail generation where I remember so I was around before cell phones. I was around before like modems.
Dad died of typhoid.
And a lot of the storytelling like on the playground was like, well, I heard this story, or like jokes that you heard from books and stuff back in my day, if I want to use an old adage, like we collected jokes on the playground and like kind of like gave our own spin to them and retold them. And that was a storytelling in a way where like, it's basic storytelling. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. And, you don't put too much emphasis on some things, or if you do, it kind of ruins the joke. And learning that really kind of like, I liked the results I was getting. I liked people laughing. I liked like being able to do that kind of stuff. And in high school, I watched basically exclusively cartoons like Looney Tunes and stand-up comedy. That's like the only things that I would watch. Now I read a ton of like scholarly stuff, but like that was like the dumb, funny stuff. Yeah. And I loved it. And so I wanted to do something like that. But I didn't think I could make a paycheck off of it until much later in life. So like I was doing like art galleries on the side of my like corporate job. I was doing like, I ran a webcomic for a while and I was being published in small indie comics. But like no one at work knew about it. It was like a weird like Clark Kent Superman thing. If Superman
you were
was
keeping
just like
it under
a nerd.
your purple mohawk.
Yeah. And I would get in trouble at the time too, because I would be like drawing in meetings and stuff, because that's how I paid attention. But it was fun, and it wasn't until I had multiple people telling me, like I ended up meeting my wife, and like she ended up telling me like, no, you need to do this. You need to stop this corporate stuff, and you need to do this full time. And it wasn't until like, I didn't listen to her. I was like, yeah, whatever.
She was foolish enough to marry me. Clearly, she has bad things going upstairs. I'm a psychologist. Trust me, honey, you need help.
And it wasn't until like I got laid off by my job like a week before we got married, which was great timing.
This future is gonna be prosperous.
Yeah, but like I sat down and I was like, okay, like I need to get serious about this. And she was like, yeah, you need to knock it off with this corporate stuff. Like, like take off the tie and go do drawing stuff and like lean in. And I started visiting.
Did she ever go look in the mirror? You have a purple fucking mohawk. What are you doing with the tie on?
It took me a minute. But I was really good at the corporate thing. It was just that like, it was
I was really good at hating myself.
It was weird. Like I during that corporate period, like I was in charge of, in addition to like a bunch of like management stuff, like they ended up giving me the social media. And it was funny because like, to put this in perspective, this is obvious to everyone but me, except for after the fact. Like, I did April Fool's movie like jokes, and I would publish them like, okay, our company's changing directions and now our product is just for horses, like good luck. And I thought it was hilarious. And then like 6 months later, the CEO came to me and he's like, you need to take this down because this is taking over our web traffic and everyone's going to see this more than they're seeing our regular ads. So I was good at being funny, but I was bad at the corporate thing. So it eventually
turns out funny and corporate not usually hand in hand.
Yeah, right. So in LA, there's a group of like artists that were they worked in cartoons and they kind of helped other people kind of get in. And I remember sitting down with a guy that was working on some Hanna-Barbera stuff at the time, and he looked at my stuff and he just stopped and he's like, this is weird. You haven't worked in TV, but you kind of have, you know what you're doing. Tell me where you're coming from. And I told him that I was coming from comics, and he's like, oh, okay. Like, I can work with this. But like, and that was probably the last one that really drilled it into me. But like being recognized as an artist by other artists was kind of like the slow burn to get me into this. It was validating. It was nice. Like having Don Hertzfeldt, the guy who did Rejected.
Oh,
like,
yeah?
Yeah, I did a meet and greet with him one time when he was putting out one of his films. And I remember asking him a question, and it was like there was like a line to talk with him. And I asked him a question. I don't even remember what the question was. But he just stopped what he was doing. He looked up at me. He said, you're an artist. Let's go talk. And he just like got up out of his seat and left his booth. And we like walked around the block talking.
Stole Don Hertzfeldt from his meet and greet.
I did. It was weird, and I did not expect that. And it was like very grounding to be like, oh no, he's not trying to be nice. Like he's actually like he sees me as an artist. And I mean, I never talked to the guy again, but like it was a really like formative experience for me.
That's so fucking cool. That's so affirming. Just pulling somebody out of their like sphere that they were like obligated to do, being like, fuck this shit, this guy's cool, let's talk about a thing, bounce.
Yeah. And like there were so many experiences like that where after the fact I'm like, oh, they weren't just being nice, they were like legitimately a dude that worked on the Jetsons like saw my work and he was like, here's my card, like you call me when you're ready and I'll get you into LA, like I'll plug you into the animation business. And I just didn't believe him. And I still have a bunch of art that he just gave me because he's like, maybe this will help you.
Aww, that's so sweet.
Yeah. It turns out people are really, like, they can be really nice. Not everyone's nice, the people are human, but artists, a lot of artists will like help you do your thing, and because it's good to share.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I like most about true artists is that it's not a what's it called? The term for this. It's
zero sum.
Yeah, it's not a zero sum game.
Mm-hmm.
Where, by like lots of other games aren't as much. There are some that are more, like we both play Magic. People argue that Magic is and isn't. I think it's probably somewhere in the middle, like, because if you do make your opponent better, then you have to increase yourself, but that is also like a net positive, but it still requires work. So like there's some amount of thing. And then like when you go to poker, I would say poker is almost exactly the opposite, where it's like all you're doing is giving yourself less money by improving your opponent. Like it's not something you generally want to be doing. Some people would argue that, like, it depends, like, why you're coming to the game, but most people come to that game strictly for money. So, like, that one, it's like, yeah, why would you do that? You're just hurting your pocketbook.
Yeah.
But art, on the other hand, no, you're fighting. Nobody's in the, like, I don't want to say nobody, but very few people are in the exact same lane as you. So by improving someone's art, you're not diminishing the value of yours. They're just different. And so, like, it causes, it's like, what is it, a rising tide raises all boats or whatever. It's just like, the more we all improve each other, the more the art form is just better. And you can just see that, like, even though I do love old Looney Tune cartoons and stuff like that, by and large, save 3D, it's just gorgeous to look at the art that's coming out now because it's just better. You can just see, so there's some stuff that hold up absurdly. Like, if you look at Akira, you're like, what the actual fuck? But sans that, like, if you look at most stuff, it's like, yeah, it's just better because we're in the now. It's like, it's like everybody's just been getting better, helping each other more, and not worrying about, oh no, if I help this guy, then my stuff. It's like, no, you're just doing, generally speaking, you're doing different stuff. Or if you can help them, then you're kind of usually either making connection and or helping yourself, because teaching, creative art processes also helps your brain and helps you as an artist, especially being seen and being noticed because you've made a relationship. And that person appreciates, you remember your interaction with Darn Hertzfeld because it improved you as a person and as an artist.
Oh, absolutely. And art is a weird thing where, like, you get used to, like, just doing your stuff in a hole alone somewhere. And that's kind of what everyone thinks art is, which is fine, but like when you meet other artists, we talked about this a little earlier, like there are different ways to do stuff. And when I first started storyboarding, first of all, like when you're working in animation, you're not working in a hole alone anymore. Like there are other people that literally depend on you. And if they don't pull their weight, you have to pull their weight too, which kind of sucks. So there's
just a little bit.
There's like vested interest in teaching other people how to be better because it makes your job easier. But it's also really neat because everyone does it differently. And so like the first time I was storyboarding on this music video, I was working with someone who had been working longer than me. And I remember seeing how she did stuff. And instead of like trying not to get too far into the weeds and using a bunch of terminology that nobody cares about, but like, she wasn't drawing very detailed. They were like kind of blank figures. There were only one or two poses per scene. So like there was no acting, no like expression, no nothing. It was just like, here's where we're putting the camera and here's how people move. And I didn't really understand. And then she would go back and like flesh out like how people moved and how they acted and stuff like that. But like, it took me watching her do that to go like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Because when you're working that early and you show people, hey, this is what I think. And your director says, no, cut that scene. I don't like it. Or we have to cut that for time. Now you're only cutting a few drawings versus like a ton of work that you've already done. And so it's like working smarter. That's really all it is. But you don't necessarily learn that until you're around other artists. And the way you stick around other artists is being nice to one another and like saying, oh, how do you do this? So this is how I do this. That's neat. And really that's it.
I remember there was this, it's an interesting show. I don't remember how good it is now, but there was this thing on IFC called Dinner for Five. It's hosted by Jon Favreau, and there's one episode in particular that I remember because I found it like free on YouTube. I'm sure totally legally, where instead of Jon Favreau, semi-thankfully, because Jon Favreau has like 3 talking points in every other episode. He talks about like being on Rudy. He talks about making swingers with Vince Vaughn, and then he talks about Vince Vaughn, rinse, repeat, like almost all the other episodes. The other guests are usually great, so it kind of there's up, but it's like it really is just like a soundboard. It's fucking hilarious. But this one episode, Kevin Smith was filling in for him, and they were talking about the guy that played damn it, the guy that played Syndrome in the Incredibles. Jason Lee.
Oh, yeah.
Who I didn't know this used to be like a professional skateboarder, which is one of the kind of fun things I found out. I was like, wait, what? And it's like, yeah, he was like legitimately good.
Yeah.
He transitioned into acting, and when he came in and auditioned for Clerks, I think it was, and he was like wrong for the role, but they like Kevin Smith brought him back in like 4 times because he just liked him. He's like, this guy's fun. He's cool, and he's like good, but he's not right for the role, but he's good. And so he made it to like the last round, sadly not knowing the whole entire time. Kevin Smith like, I can't cast the guy, but I do like watching him audition. And then when he made Mallrats a couple of years later, he just like locked him in that part because he's like, I just like having this guy around. He's good energy, you know, all this stuff. And so it was like, but you're talking about like being a good person. It's like the amount that matters just in the world, and especially in, oddly enough, in acting, is or just like, you know, the creative sphere, like, is so important. I remember hearing like stories about the way actors used to be in like the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, where they were just rampaging assholes, but like talent. But now it seems hopefully that is like kind of, you know, it kind of has like flipped, at least in certain people's eyes, a different way, to where what you're talking about with just being in an artistic field, it's like being decent to be around has so much value. It's like one of those things that doesn't get talked about enough in this world is like being a chill hang, or just a, you know, overall fine dude or dudette or however, you know, whatever word you want to use to describe yourself. It's like, that is like so valuable.
It absolutely is. I mean, when I first started getting in here, there was someone that told me that there are 3 things. You can either be really good, you can be really good, you can be easy to work with, and you can be like on time or early with all of your work. Yeah. And they said, choose 2 and you get the job. And that tracks. That's really it. And like, as someone who, like, at first coming from as an outsider, when I was like, oh, what do you mean be easy to work with? Like, oh, you just mean like be friends or whatever. But like, honestly, as someone who used to like manage people, if you're managing a jerk who's just contrarian all the time, that's extra time that you have to work with them to like push back and say, no, like, you do have to do it this way, and here's why. Like, and that's exhausting if you have to do that every day with every single thing you ask someone. And so they either have to be really worth it, or you don't have to do that. And you can, because like usually when you're on set with people,
the way you said that was so kind, but when you said you don't have to do that, it means you don't have to work with them, aka fire that motherfucker.
Oh yeah, because like
get out.
Usually people aren't managing or like directing just one person, right? It's like a whole crew. And so if I'm spending like 80% of my day with one person, that's a waste of time.
That person needs to be doing 80% of the work. Otherwise, like, what am I doing here?
And I'm sure there are people in the comments that are going to like roast me on this and be like, no, you're wrong. Well, that's fine.
Maybe I hope you're on time then, person that's saying that, because you're going to need to be with you're going to need to be and as good as you think you are. Like, otherwise you're going to have a rude awakening in about a week. What's the biggest misconception about storytelling by the wider world, do you think?
Ooh, probably a few of them.
Drop them all.
All right. Well, let's go with, hey, that story has been told before.
Simpsons did it.
Yeah, or like the Titanic. Titanic was like one of the largest grossing movies of all time and came in critical success. Like, nobody should have been surprised by the end of that movie.
Yeah, everybody knew the ending before they bought their ticket.
Yeah, but they told it in a compelling way. Like, and you start looking at like a lot of stories boil down to basically the same thing. And I was There was a meme that I saw the other day.
There's this quote that it's like, there are only 26 unique stories.
Yeah.
And somebody, I think like Kurt, I want to say it was Kurt Vonnegut. It was somebody that was like a little bit renowned and kind of up their own butthole. But like, and they were saying like, there's X amount of stories. Actually, there's probably like half as many. And if you really boil it down, there's probably only like 3. It's like, there's 26, probably 13. Actually, if you go down to like their core essence, there's 3 stories. And that's it. Like the rest of them are just like, the characters are just wearing different clothes, different hats, and maybe a different nose. It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah, and like, I saw a meme the other day that was like, every single story is the Epic of Gilgamesh. Like that's it. And
probably accurate.
Except for the movie Megan's Body. I think that was the joke about it. But like, honestly, it doesn't, like, one, that's probably not true, but 2, I don't think it really matters. Like the way you tell the story is fundamentally different. Like if you took Little Red Riding Hood and told it from the woodcutter's perspective, like I had a comic that I never finished about this. That was basically like the woodcutter wasn't there to kill the wolf. He was there stalking like the little old lady, and the fact that a wolf popped out, or that a little old lady popped out of the dead little old lady, is like itself kind of a terrifying thing. Like you can tell the same story different ways. It's fine. It'd
be great to tell that story in the post of just the woodcutter going to therapy and being like, I killed this wolf and an old lady popped out and hugged me and I don't know how I feel about this. Just like rocking back and forth.
Yeah.
Talking to a purple mohawked therapist who's like, it's fascinating. I think this goes back to your mother. Like,
yeah. Or like, like it comes down to like any joke on the playground you've probably heard before, but if someone has a new way of telling it, it's interesting again. It's funny again. Look at Godzilla's been told more times than I can count, but Shin Godzilla came out a few years ago, and I don't know if you've seen it, but it focuses more on the fact that the government's like stuck on the bureaucracy around dealing with Godzilla.
No. We need to do this through my friend's company. He makes better lasers. It's gonna cost twice as much, Shinji. What the fuck? We're gonna have to rebuild this country afterwards. We need the money. No, I mean, like another great example of that is was it Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead? It's like they just took the story and they're like, what if? And just went really meta and just like off the end and just like rewrote it from 2 dead guys' perspectives who are side characters at best in the original play.
And that kind of stuff is great. I mean, so you don't need a 100% original idea to make something. Maybe just a new take. Maybe just a new voice.
Yeah. Just move the camera 3 feet to the right.
Yeah.
Just look at the catering's response to the way the scene's playing out. I'd watch that movie at least once.
I mean, there was an award-winning short story that was like Wile E. Coyote versus the Acme Corporation as a lawsuit.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Guys, your shit never works. Like, clearly, I am owed some restitution. Sir, you bought it. Like, you continue to buy the product. We only owe you restitution for the first product. Everything after that is clearly on you. These are gag props. Why are you using them to try to kill a bird and commit, murder in broad daylight? Hey, this is an anvil that... I would love to see that play out in, like, a stenographer's court proceedings of just, like, the line writing would be so great.
I mean, yeah, it's those things are amazing, and you can get different stories out of it as a result. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm trying to think of. Sorry, trying to get out of the rabbit hole into the topic at hand tonight. I'm trying to remember what other
misconceptions about
misconceptions. I mean, there are misconceptions about all sorts of stuff. I mean, having a sequel isn't always a good idea.
Just look at Disney.
Just look at. I mean, I'm gonna get. I can get real controversial with some of these takes, but I don't like sequels necessarily. And
which is where hot take time. Which is worse, sequel or reboot?
Reboot's okay if you have something new to say. Like look at like Dredd a few years ago. I think Dredd was amazing.
Yeah. It looked at its own source material for once.
Yeah.
As opposed to Stallone just screaming into a camera with his mask off.
Yeah, or like I even like the Robert Pattinson's Batman. I thought that was a really fun movie because it did come across. It kind of like it was a newish take in that it returned to old roots. I don't know if I should spoil it, but like I liked it. But like if you're doing a shot for shot remake for something, but it's animated versus not, or not animated versus it is, or something like that, it's boring. Like, why are you making it?
Because this way she can kick spears at the Huns.
Yeah. I mean, and I was thinking of Lion King specifically, talking of Favreau, but yeah. There are just some things that you don't need to be remade, just like there are some things that just don't need sequels.
Yeah. On the flip side of this, what is your favorite non-obvious aspect to storytelling that a lot of people don't see that you just revel in?
Probably tone. Probably being able to, like, when I get stuff, there's anywhere, it ranges anywhere from like, here is a shot for shot what I want, depending on my director, depending on my producer, or there's a vague paragraph of what I'm kind of thinking. And I get to carry the ball as far as I can carry it, which is really pretty cool. And I still get told no a lot, which is fine. But I think like being able to like experiment with stuff and say, oh, okay, you want this really weird, like you want something zooming in instead of like scrolling over a map, kind of Indiana Jones like. Why don't we do like an Adventure Time, like zooming in and out of stuff? Like, why don't we do that? That's kind of fun. And then I animate it, and they go, no, we don't want that.
We don't want that at all.
But I get to try it, like, and it's cool. It's also cool because like this is partially storytelling, this is partially storyboarding, but like, so when I'm telling a story, I have to mimic whatever style they're telling me to mimic. Which means that I did a music video last year that was in the style of Scooby-Doo. And one of the things that I never thought about until I have to do this, and I start binging Scooby-Doo for like 2 days, is how do they save money? Because like Scooby-Doo didn't move a lot, and like you don't see them walking. They don't actually move that much either. Sometimes they just move the camera around. Rocky and Bullwinkle did this a lot too, for those of you who are old enough to remember them, where you don't necessarily move them around a lot. You shake the camera, you move the camera around. You don't see them doing things.
It's the anime. Yeah, it's the way they did like anime in the 90s. They just like, it's like basically a flat mat and they just move the camera across it. One of my favorite animes that is great and terrible is I think it's like the 90 or early 2000s Berserk adaptation that had no fucking money. And there's multiple like big battle scenes where it's clearly like drawn like something you'd put on your wall, and they take the camera and they just move it across it with sound. It's like, like swords clashing, and then they like, then they cut to the animation, but they do that for like minutes. They're like, here you go. And you're just like, it's cool.
It's kind of a fun story, like problem solving thing too. Like, and anime was notorious for this. You have like, you're just animating a cape and everything else is staying still.
That's the best. Some guy standing there, there's just wind, not on his face though, not affecting his beard, just his cape.
But that's absolutely what you have to do, and it's a weird stylistic thing. I mean, it's why anime in profile, like, they don't move their lips; they just have like a mouth off to the side.
Yeah,
that's a cost saving measure, but it became like this something that's endemic to anime and like emblematic of anime.
Yeah,
I love that kind of stuff because it's weird problem solving, and you don't have an unlimited budget. At least I haven't.
I mean, it's like the best story is like what they did with Jaws. The reason that it like ended up being such an iconic movie is because the shark isn't shown that much. The shark isn't shown that much is because it fucking broke and they didn't have the tech at the time. If you look at so many new movies now, they show the shark, they show the the monster all the time. It's like the best part about old horror movies and monster movies of like the 80s. they didn't have money and they didn't have the tech to make like the first Alien. They didn't have fucking money to have that many scenes with the alien, so it's like, you know, done in the dark, done off to the side, shown very sparingly because they didn't have the fucking money to do it, and it makes it all the more horrifying.
Yeah. Fun fact, I just learned recently about Alien. You know, the scene where there are all the eggs for the face huggers, there's that like layer of laser that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where they got the money for that laser?
No.
They didn't. So the Who, the band The Who was doing a stage testing next door in a different soundstage, and they just wandered over and asked if they could borrow their laser light setup. And like that kind of creative problem solving is amazing. It's also like maybe this is a deep cut, but like, I mean, maybe this is just a hot take. I don't know, but I hate all of the redone Star Wars stuff because it
looks bad. It also stands out too with like Jabba the Hutt just like slugging along talking to Han Solo. You're like, motherfucker, you don't look like an alien. You don't look like you belong in this universe. Like what? Like why are you that scary looking?
Yeah, and the story's already been told. Like stop adding, like you're not adding anything by adding Jabba the Hutt talking in an alley. Like I used to make the joke, and maybe this is a controversial take. Like George Lucas had enough money to remake all the Star Wars anytime he wanted to. You know what he left untouched? The Star Wars Christmas special. And I know he tried to destroy every tape in existence, but the fact that he didn't go back and change it means that canonically, it's probably the most perfect representation of Star Wars that we've ever had.
That's so great. All right. Well, since we're not going to get better than that tidbit, move on to the second bit. My friend, what is your preposterous peeve?
Ooh, stories that either have basically no point. They're missing. Stories need a beginning, a middle, and an end. And a lot of times they don't. Sometimes there's stories on screen that like have completely unanswered questions that nobody cares about. Sometimes they just don't have endings, like, and they were planned that way. Mm-hmm. There's no resolution. There's no anything. There's no point to it. Sometimes it's your best friend telling you about the dream that they had last night. But it's like nails on a chalkboard for me. It's why for quite a long time, like I couldn't watch television that didn't have like an ending. So I had to wait until seasons were over to like start watching them, or I would just watch like limited series.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous, but it's kind of like I need consequences with my storytelling. I need a beginning, middle, and end. I need something to change.
I need closure.
Yeah. It's also why like Superman's 60 years old, but nothing has changed. Like comic people are going to yell at me for this.
No, I'll stand with you on this burning bridge. Superman sucks. He is the worst, most loved, like, mutant superhero motherfucker on the planet. It's like he never loses. He doesn't learn anything. Nothing ever changes. It's like watching Jesus come back from the grave every time, and like nobody's figured out anything. Like, there's nothing. It's the same story with like a different title card and a different villain. But yeah, it's no.
I would even say that the movies are even worse because like so early comic Superman, pre Comics Code Superman, before like the McCarthyism and the scare and stuff like that, Superman was just an alien immigrant who used to beat up on like CEOs, and like was fighting for the people and like people who were like.
This is also when he couldn't fly, right? This is when he could jump over a building in a simple
he jumped real big.
Yeah. That, I think, honestly, that kind of made him better. The second he could, like, see through things, have heat vision, and fly, it's like, it really, and, like, didn't need to breathe in space. It's like, all right, come the fuck on. Like, what, like, we get it. Megatron, the person. Like, what is this? Like, make him, like, you know, but when he was, like, he could punch really hard, bullets ricochet off him, cool, whatever. He could still get, like, kind of, like, knocked down by a tank, and he could only jump really high. Like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think the Superman now, the one that's like completely invincible to everything, the compelling story. Yeah, and like the compelling story isn't that watching him punch stuff. It's the internal monologue on why he's not just killing people. Yeah. Like why is he still happy? Why is he still optimistic? Why is he still like putting people in jail and like obeying laws? And I think that take it's not as much fun to watch on screen. It's him sitting, you know, at a desk thinking to himself and not like punching people. And that's not necessarily a fun story to tell with special effects. So we don't tell it anymore.
Now we just have him beat up, get hit with kryptonite, come back to life.
Yeah.
And arguably the best story that hasn't been told, or it gets told in the way that it was done in the comics, which is heinous, is the death of Superman.
Oh,
where he dies, and like you have this most like cathartic, like holy shit moment, and then he just comes back to life. It's okay.
Yeah,
all right,
just kidding.
back to square one, where nothing bad ever happens to Superman.
The thing is, and maybe my memory is wrong on this, but I think that wasn't even the first time that Superman died. Like,
oh, really?
I seem to remember him fighting his way. Maybe this was concurrently, but I seem to remember him fighting his way out of an afterlife at one point, like punching angels and stuff.
That's hilarious. God's like, sorry, dude, you're dead. The fuck I am. Just like cracks knuckles and just like gets after it. The angels are like, no, you have to step back. He's like, fuck you.
Like that's also the John Wick that I want to see, by the way, is him going to like fighting the afterlife to get his dog back. Like that's give me
Constantine.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, it all looks
maybe that's what like they are putting in the boots. Maybe that's what Constantine 2 is. Constantine 2, the Wickening. Like they kill him in the final John Wick, and he just like comes back from hell with his dog. He's just like, you guys suck. Like, gets holy bullets from Jesus. You know, they're just like hanging out. They're homies. Fucking awesome. When did you first notice the like bad ending, the not so, like the missing element of a story being problematic for you and like really raising your ire?
Probably back when I was a kid and reading corporate comics. I remember when The Death of Superman came out, and during that time there were, you may remember this, there were 4 stand-ins for Superman that came back before Superman came back. And they were all like, well, this could be Superman. And there was like the Iron John kind of Superman.
Yeah,
was, like,
that was the funniest
Superboy.
one. It's just this old black man with
yeah,
that
like,
hammer.
I liked him the most. He was
No, he's the
basically
best, but
Batman.
it's the most like, it's the most like, his name is like endemic of his character, and just like, it's just so cringe. It's like, guys, come the
wasn't his name like John Hammer or something like that? Like,
it's like old man Hammer or something.
Yeah.
It's just like, it just tells you everything about his story, just encapsulated his name. It's like, jeez, fucking Christ.
Well, and that's when like it was either that or that was right around the same time that Onslaught happened in the Marvel universe, where Professor X and Magneto like melded somehow.
Yes.
And
yeah, I'm trying to remember. They had a certain name for it. Hold on.
I thought that was Onslaught.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, he had shoulder pads. I remember that.
He was gigantic.
Yeah. But I remember with both of them, like they killed off a good portion of their respective universes. But then like they just kind of both of them spun off alternate universes, and both of them just kind of kept going. And at that point I was just like, well, there are no consequences.
Yep.
And
I do respect that it's an alternate universe where they're all still dead, though, right? Is what obviously they're still making ones where everybody's alive, but it's not like they brought them back to life. They just made a different universe where they're all still alive.
Yeah. And I think in retrospect, because I kind of like accepted that as canon, and like Dragon Ball Z did that too.
Dragon Ball Z just doesn't kill anybody.
It was just a timeout.
I didn't realize why that show. I was mid on that show, and it wasn't until years later I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally why. It's just like death is irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we just go to like, yes, it's a task, but also it's done a zillion times. Go find the Dragon Balls. We get Goku back. Like, neat. Like, so he's dead in quotes. Like, what the fuck is this shit?
Exactly. Yeah. It wasn't until, what was it? I read something, and it was either like an indie comic or like some show or something where someone stayed dead, and that blew me away.
That can happen? Like in real life?
Like, oh wow, there are consequences. And like it started occurring to me like why all this stuff was kind of like why it did and didn't weigh on me. And I started connecting the dots, and it was just like, oh, okay, like this is there are actual consequences to this, and not just an alternate universe where like Superman and Batman fist fight until one of them dies. Like it's just.
That was the funniest one to me, is just the idea that you can punch an immortal to death. It's like throw him through a building. No, I got to use my fist. Like, what the fuck's that gonna do? No writer of Superman or Batman has ever read a physics textbook. There's no fucking way I will stand on that. That's just nothing they've ever done.
Well, it's more fun to be over the top, you know, like, and
building falls on him. No, this fist, it can't stand up to this fist. That's for damn sure.
I mean,
it's a gas powered fist. How the fuck is he ever gonna live through that? It can't. It's never been done. No one's ever done it before.
The same way that the spandex holds up to bullets, you know. It's
yes. There's some comic, or I don't remember what it is, but I remember seeing that where they really just played with the form and like they transformed and their shirt ripped. They're like, oh, like, well, you know, somebody mentioned that and they're like, there's no material that's going to flex to this, like, to this difference in sizing and not just like, you know, look like a bed sheet on me. Like, it's like, this isn't a thing. It's like, so I think they end up fighting like predominantly naked or something like that. When when they transformed, they either got something that they put on then transformed, or they just like took off their clothes and transformed and basically fought naked. And they questioned about it. They're like, I don't have the time or money to constantly be getting this shit. It's so awesome. I was like, that's so great. Like, very accurate. It was like, yeah, I was like, what does it matter? I'm gonna kill you. You saw me naked, die. Do you have a time where the incongruity truly put you over the edge, where just like somebody told you a story, you read a story, and the ending was just like not, and you just like fists went to dicks, just like,
oh man, which time can I think of? I mean, there are a lot of them. I mean I was one of the people that stood up and clapped at the end of the end game when Thanos killed everyone, but that's
I clapped while crying in my seat. Something about the way the Tom Holland said, "I don't want to go," just still fucking wrecks me to this day.
Oh no, it was amazing, but I mean, I wanted there to be consequences, and obviously there weren't, and that's, you know,
I mean, Scarlett Johansson's dead.
Yeah, I mean,
we got one consequence.
we got one consequence, and she'll live on through flashbacks, and who knows, and maybe cloning, because we both know Spider-Man. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else that really, really got to me. But like, I think it happened so often over the years that it was just kind of a background drone.
Yeah, it's just storytelling tonight. It's just
yeah,
continually getting slightly louder, but you're just like, whatever. Like
And yeah, and like, I mean, you made the example of Dragon Ball. I mean, Dragon Ball Z, like the first, I don't know, season, movie, whatever you want to call it, they were the most powerful that beings ever were.
Yeah.
And then they had to just go up from there. And it just became
my
more
favorite
and more
about that is that the way, did you ever read, I didn't read this until like way after, but the way Dragon Ball actually started, before it was Dragon Ball Z, when it was just Dragon Ball.
I didn't read Dragon Ball. I wanted to, but yeah, I never really got into it.
I went back and like, after like somebody made a comment in some like video essay I saw, I was like, what? They were just like, in the original, they were just karate tournaments. These guys weren't flying around the world. They were just throwing like, you know, like strong crescent kicks and shit. And then just like gradually over time, we ended up fighting across the world, being able to fly, and then go into space and blow up fucking planets and get reincarnated. They just like kept like power creeping their own series so much that it went from like humble beginnings to god tier nonsense.
They really did. they had to top themselves to the point that it was ridiculous. And that I feel like also, I don't know whatever happened to Daniel Tosh, but I feel like that happened to him as well.
Like, so I actually saw a Daniel Tosh thing recently. I went and like saw him in person. He's still amazing. Great comic, would recommend if you ever get the opportunity and you're a fan of his and you see that he's performing anywhere near you, definitely go. But apparently when he pitched the idea of like, you're talking about like Tosh.0 predominantly, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So when he pitched the idea of Tosh.0, it was like, fuck it, this is a random idea, here you go. It was kind of just to appease his publicist or his like manager, and then they took it and he was like, oh shit. And then he did it and he was kind of like, he was like not off it, but like whatever about it after like season 2, and he was just like getting paid stupid money. And then eventually I think it was the like like rape joke or something like that there was something in relatively recent history that got him like, they're like, all right, we're not going to renew. And he's like, thank God. Because he's just like been off it for fucking ever. He's like, well, it was just something that it was a show, but then they were paying me like house money every, buy a new house in like the hills every year money. It's like, how the fuck can I say no to this when it's like barely a job and I get to fuck around and do whatever the hell I want? It's like, I guess I have to do it. But like once he got like, they're like, yeah, we're not going to renew or you're canceled. He's like, oh, thank God. Like, it was like you getting fired from your corporate gig. It was like finally a way out. Is never was going to punch the ticket myself. But since somebody else did it for me, just like deep breath of fresh air.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And with
sometimes it takes a kick, a kick in the pants to get you out of it.
Like, it's hard to leave comfort.
Yeah.
Like when
it's inertia, like you're used to something.
Yeah. I don't want to go outside. Like, there's monsters out there. Anything could happen, including the bad. Like, I know what's going to happen here. It's an evil that I've accepted, and I've, we play checkers and make sandwiches every other week. I'm on a very good understanding with this evil. I know what it expects of me, and it knows what it expects. Like, all that. It's like, I'm safe. I'm fine with this. It's the kind of there's this. I remember seeing a clip of it recently. There's this ad that I think Comedy Central or somebody came out with years ago, and it's like a bunch of guys from The New Girl and a couple other comedians sitting on this couch watching a TV show or something like that. And one of them's like, "Oh, I'm out of beer. You want me to go get you any?" They're like, "Yeah, sure." It's out in the garage, and they go out there and like, "Holy fuck, there's a bear out here." It goes, "Yeah, don't worry though. Statistically, it only eats 1 out of 8 of us." And they're like, "What the fuck? There's 8 of us. One of us is gonna die." Yeah, but the other 7 will be fine. Just go get us beer. It's just like, that's kind of what that situation is. It's like, it's not that bad. It's still bad, but it's like, it's a number that you've accepted and you've moved on some, and then like you don't like recalculate the number, look at it and like compare it to like other different animals that are in people's garages when you go to get beer. It's like, oh, it's a tiger. It only kills like 1 out of 60 of us. Well, that's a more acceptable number. That's not something you recalibrate. So you just accept that, there's a bear in the garage 1 out of 8 times. I'm, not going to come back with beer.
Exactly. Yeah. So just, once you drink 7 beers, just watch out.
Drinking. All right. With that fun little tidbit, we're going to head to our second ad break, but don't go anywhere, because when we get back, Justin is going to enter the lightning round. Have you ran out of new stuff to do, rendering your life wholly unsatisfying? Do you have too much time on hand and have no idea what to do with it? Or are you just plain over this existence and wish for a plane with more intrigue? Might I introduce you to Addiction? Addiction deals with all these problems and more. Had to meet your significant other's parents and would rather not? Addiction. Had to go to work for the 3rd day in a row? Addiction. Rent? Why not? Addiction. Addiction cannot be held responsible for your choice of choosing to imbibe in addiction. Any and all life-destroying fallout as a result of addiction cannot be legally pinned on addiction. But you're more than welcome to try. And we're back. Justin, are you ready to enter lightning round?
The lightning round.
Oh yeah. Let's do it.
All right, buckle your seatbelts and keep your arms inside the ride at all times. Is there a price for you to give up your passion forever?
Ooh. Both of my arms, I guess. I guess that's a cost, not a price.
Make the food or do the dishes?
Ooh, half and half. Yeah, half and half. I love cooking, but I don't mind dishes. So,
did you ever cheat on a test in school?
No.
Would you rather have your inner monologue sound like Gilbert Gottfried or Fran Drescher?
Fran Drescher.
Is professional wrestling cool or lame?
I think it's funny. So let's go with cool.
You're having the best day of your life. What happens next? Another amazing thing or something terrible?
Probably something terrible. I have notoriously bad luck.
Nick Cage, best or worst ever?
Ooh, own category, I think. He's the best at being Nick Cage.
Do you create your own thoughts or do you just listen to them?
I give them a push start and then let them keep going.
Album, shuffle, or playlist?
Ooh. Playlist.
Would you rather the checkout line never had a line or the fast food place always gave you a large fry when you ordered a medium?
Let's go with no line.
Would you rather have the superpowers to travel into the vastness of space or travel into the darkness of the ocean depths?
Ooh, I'm going to suffocate either way. So let's go with space.
Well, no. You get to survive in either. You don't just get to like be able to reach into them. You can survive in them.
Oh, so hit by a meteorite or eaten by a giant shark. Yep. Let's go with meteorite.
a lot more bombastic.
Aim for the stars, right?
Is there such a thing? Is there such a thing as a perfect piece of art?
No. I think there's, and I do think there's a better question of, is there such thing as a bad piece of art?
Have you ever had a crush on a cartoon character?
Yeah, when I was a kid. Yeah. I'm just trying to think of which one. I think when I was really young, Bugs Bunny dressing up like a woman gave me weird feelings. So there's that.
Don't worry, you weren't the only one. The villain also was perplexed. What is more important, freedom or structure?
Ooh, let's go with freedom. I've had a lack of both, and I'm going to go with freedom.
Would you rather have tentacle arms or kangaroo legs?
Kangaroo legs, fun fact, you can octopi taste through their tentacles, and I don't want to taste everything I touch.
Oh, yeah, that changes that. Would you rather spend 2 years in jail or live with an ex for 6 months?
Can I pick the ex?
Yes.
Oh, that's still hard. I'd go with X, though. Shorter period of time.
Sippy cup or straw?
Straw.
Would you rather meet an extraterrestrial or a ghost?
Ooh. I feel like a ghost is a better long-term friend. And also, if you don't like him, you can move. So.
No internet ever again, or the internet streams directly into your brain at all times.
Oh, God. No internet ever again, because pop-ups in my brain would be terrible. Also, viruses.
Touche. Could you eat 37 of your favorite food for $5,000 in a 1 hour time limit?
Probably not, because they're tamales, and I would explode. I would try, though.
Well, congratulations. You've survived the lightning round. Now, as a reward for surviving such a risky task, you may now ask me one question, and I will ask future guests said question.
Okay.
What is your lightning round question?
You are cursed. Would you rather be a human in a world full of Muppets or a Muppet in a world full of humans?
It truly is a curse. Is a human in a world full of Muppets? Because I don't want to be a Muppet in a world full of humans, because then everybody's going to stick their hand up my ass.
I mean, either way, dating's real hard, so...
Yeah. Actually, in a world full of Muppets, dating would be very soft. Morally questionable in either, to be sure. What about you, my good man?
I've been called a Muppet more times than I can count. So I'd probably be a Muppet in a world full of humans, which is great.
That way, at least they're accurate when they're referring to you as such.
Yeah, and honestly, it's good to provide comedic relief.
Can't confirm. All right, man, as we come to a close, anything you want to plug, shout-outs you'd like to give, places people can find you or your content?
I'd like to thank the Academy. No, I'm you can find me on Instagram at JBAB Comics. I think I'm also on Twitter on the same handle, but I never post on Twitter, so just come over to Instagram.
That's where the cool kids are.
Yeah, I should be plugging future art shows and stuff like that, but I'll have that updated on my Instagram when I get more details. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, past self. Also, thank you, Justin Babb, for being my guest today, and a special thanks to my editor, Richard Ashford, and my composer, Joshua Gibbons. And thank you, yes, you, listening at home, or you found time to appreciate this. Time is the most precious commodity we have, and I appreciate you spending yours with us. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, or just share it with a friend. Or if you already have done all of those things and are out of episodes to listen to, don't worry, we put out a new episode every Monday at midnight on SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And a very special thanks are due to our patrons, Sabella Yellow. If you'd like to join said illustrious ranks and have your name read aloud, just head on over to patreon.com/Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And remember, folks, if days are numbered and songs are sung, at the end of the day, I think we've all won. So please stick around, because great things have only just begun.